We're working. All right. Hey, can the all right, so I got some really great echo going on. That's not what I want. I think maybe I just want to do that. Are any of you all who are on Instagram also on YouTube right now? People are on YouTube. I assume, can people hear me? If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. This is my basement, and it's really nice. Welcome to my very nice basement. So, my name is Matthew, and I'm the pastor at Trinity in Decatur. And so, what we're doing right now is we're going to try something new for the first time. We're going to do a live feed on YouTube. We're also right now doing it on Instagram. So if you want to be, I think right now the chat feature on YouTube's not working. So what we're going to do in a bit is take questions. So if you have questions, the best way to get them to us is going to be to do it on Instagram. Hey everyone, it's good to see you all. Welcome. So here's what I'm going to do. This is coming from a thing that our leadership team has been thinking about for a while, which is basically how do we create space and context for conversations that are going to help us both inside the church and outside the church have like thoughtful, intelligent ways of approaching life in the world. And so just the reality that oftentimes we spend so much time in the church thinking about church things, or that we can sometimes miss just what does it mean for us to, as people who are trying to do what is good in the world, what is just, what is right, what is beautiful. You don't have to be a Christian to value those things. In fact, many Christians don't value those things. Many people who are not, and instead coronavirus hit. And so what we're going to do is use this as an opportunity to ask some deep questions around we're going to ask some deep questions around how we can I'm not quite sure what I just gave permission for. We're going to ask deep questions around what can we be learning so far from this thing that we're in. Oh, hey.
No, I did it by accident.
Okay, I'm going to turn you off. What can we be learning from this season that we're in? So this is kind of an experiment for us, and what we're hoping comes out of it is something that's really helpful and something that is fruitful and creates good conversation, something that you enjoy watching and that can become interesting fodder for conversation with you and people in the community with you, people you live with, and so on. We don't there's nothing novel anymore about saying that we're living in an unprecedented time. We clearly are. Probably the magnitude of what is happening right now, we are underestimating it more than overestimating it. That it's more likely that it's more serious what's going on than we even currently understand. As far as what's happening, not just on a medical and a health perspective, but what's happening economically, what's happening societally, what's happening currently culturally. To be alive right now, I saw this brief article the other day on how time has Corona has totally reformed our idea of time, because now we no longer live sort of on a chronological clock, but according to the clock of Corona, meaning that we actually are basing our decisions on like what time is it where you are Corona wise. Are you at the peak? Are you approaching a peak? Well, then you're kind of in the future. Or are you like one of those places where there hasn't really been any outbreak yet? Well, then you're sort of in the past. You know, Italy is not 6 hours ahead of Atlanta. Italy is 2 weeks ahead of Atlanta. That's how we think of it now. And so in light of that, in light of just the reforming of time, the loss of rhythm, the loss of markers, I spent 30 minutes last night trying to figure out if it was trash night because nobody knows anymore what day it is. In light of that, we are living in a very unsettled and uncertain time. And so what's probably going to happen is we're going to stay there for a bit, and then we're going to acclimate to it like water. And then on the other side of that, on the other side of the of whatever acclimation there is, there's going to be some kind of a real gradual, most likely very gradual, small reset back into something, some sort of life that we would call normal. Normal is I think what most of us are missing right now. Normal rhythms, normal normal people, normal restaurants. Just we're missing the stuff that felt like life, and it doesn't feel that way anymore. Normal, though, if normal is what we came from, I just want to say at the beginning that I think we need to acknowledge that normal wasn't working for everyone. That normal worked for some of us, but there were a lot of people for whom normal actually meant marginalization. It meant systemic oppression. Normal, as we understood normal, actually wasn't working for all of us, which means that we should be asking questions in this abnormal time about what from normal do we want to return to, and then what from normal would we like to change? What do we want to learn from this abnormal season that we're in? Normal wasn't working for many people because of systemic and structural issues. But I also would argue that I don't think normal was working for most of us, meaning that no degree of prosperity or quality of life was compensating for the degree to them, the fatigue and depression, that these were just sort of, as these things, as prosperity was going up, so were our therapy bills, as we tried to make sense of this world. And so normal, whatever normal is, it doesn't feel like it was necessarily working for most of us. A number of people have shared with me, because what I do for a living is I'm a pastor, and people tell pastors stuff. And one of the things, a bunch of people have shared with me in the last couple of weeks, that this season, even though nobody would ever want to recreate the circumstances that have brought about this season of quarantine and shelter in place, a bunch of people have told me this has actually felt like a huge gift, which is really interesting. That there's actually been something about being forced to stop and forced to stay with your roommates or loved ones or in isolation. And there's been hardship in it, and there's been things that have been difficult and complicated and messy about it, but there's also been something really good and a gift, which just tells us like what kind of pace a number of us, most of us, must have been running at in order for a global slamming on of the brakes, for that to be received as a gift with all the things that go with it. Like, what must that say about how fast or unsustainable we were all running? It's revealed weaknesses in our system. It's shown us that we were way more vulnerable than we thought we were. We have created this, we've moved out of like sort of isolationist tendencies, and we've created this very broad and global system. And yet this system, while it felt very robust and complex, actually could be undone by one bug out of China. And a single thing like that could just completely collapse the entire thing. And it shows that actually the thing that we were kind of banking on to be pretty solid and sustainable for us isn't as sustainable as we thought it was going to be. And it's probably us all depending on a system like that has probably made people who aren't quite as resilient as we thought we were too. So one of the people who I really respect is a guy named Mark Sayers. He's out of Melbourne, Australia. He's a great cultural commentator, and he's worth checking out. But Sayers described what we're experiencing right now as this hard reset, a hard reboot, thinking in sort of IT terms. So what we're going through right now is just that, someone holding down the power button until the whole thing crashes and then starts up again. But of course, sometimes, like when you're doing a hard reboot, you know this. When you're doing a hard reboot, what you're trying to do is just get your computer back on again because it froze. But what this could be, if we wanted it to be, if we tried to make it, and is this could be a reboot that you do because you're upgrading the software. Like, to take the analogy maybe too far, but what if on the other side of this, our operating system actually was stronger and healthier and more robust, and what we were growing out of this was something better than what we were going into it? What if we came out of this as people who didn't need a hard reboot as the world is? Which brings me to what I just want to talk about for a few minutes, and what will probably end up being a much longer conversation. And if this goes well, maybe we'll do more of these. But the thing is yeah, I want us to think about, like, what is it that we could learn from this that would make us into the kind of people and into the kind of society that we would that we'd like to see on the other side of this. Again, not that everything was bad. In fact, many things were good, but just recognizing the inherent weaknesses and the lack of resiliency in it, and recognizing our own, for many of us, need for some sort of reset. The questions we can be asking ourselves, and the one that I'm just interested in exploring personally for myself, is what opportunities are afforded to us in this season to learn and grow? What sort of questions can we ask ourselves so that on the other side of this, we actually make better and wiser decisions? And I think that probably, as I've been thinking about what this has taught me already in the last few weeks around community and ritual and rhythm, image and vanity, and so many other things, that there's no way to talk about all these things well or fully, but maybe we could just tonight begin by, I could just begin by sharing some of the things that I feel like have been exposed, at least in me, as being weaknesses in the way that I thought of and approached these things up till this point. So community, as a good place to start. Community is something that I think almost every person I know is aching for at the moment, which tells us something about how important community is. That community is not this optional thing, and nobody would have said that they thought it was necessarily. But the question is how did we live? How central was community to me? One of the things that I am naturally predisposed to is to value productivity over people, and it's not one of my favorite things about myself, to be honest. But it's one of the things that if I'm in a room and there's something to be done and there's people to be talked to, I'm more likely to gravitate towards the thing that needs to be done. And partly is because of how controllable it is. The community is the group of people that, whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert, I'm choosing to surround myself with, and to share or impart part of my life with, and to sort of trust in to carry some of the weight of my life in their hands. And that's what a community is. And all of us right now, whether we're naturally extroverted or introverted, I think are experiencing what happens when suddenly there's not people in the room anymore to do that with. Maybe it's just the same people over and over again. And for some of us, there's no one in the room. Like, we're literally alone all the time, which is incredibly lonely. I think that there's been an underappreciation for just how valuable it is to sit with a person and to look them in the eye, to put a hand on them, to shake a hand. I mean, I know this is really silly, but do you remember like how little we thought of human touch? And yet, like, how weird and great it's going to feel to shake hands with someone again, how strange it's going to be to be able to give someone a hug again. And for the first little bit, that's been a priority, and that it's something that it's worth fighting for. As a pastor, I am constantly working in ritual and then inviting people into ritual. You can kind of get bored with it until suddenly it's gone. And you don't have to be religious to have rituals. Things that happen just naturally every time people do a thing together. I was thinking earlier today about what it'll be like the first time I'm at an Atlanta United game again. and who knows when that's going to be, and how long it'll be before they'll let that many people in one space again. But we've lost the ability to experience ritual with one another. Whether it's something you do at church, like passing the peace, or it's something you do at a larger scale. And how much, and that what that does for us as human beings and binding us together, how necessary and critical that is to experience our humanness with one another, to be doing something at the same time. Like YouTube Live or Instagram Live. I guess these are our new rituals, and it's nice that we're all here together, but none of us are here together. Rituals are something that I have vastly underappreciated in my life. I think one of the things that's been exposed in a lot of people that I've talked to is how out of rhythm their life was. People have started doing things every day they never did before, like take walks every day, create space for exercise every day. The pace of just everything is slowed down. And the reason it's slowed down is because it could. Because there's actually this sort of bubble around everyone right now. Everyone, with a few exceptions, is like pretty understanding that like we're all trying to acclimate to something brand new and very difficult right now. And by the way, there's chronic anxiety going on, and a pandemic, and thousands of people are dying, and the economy's crashing. There's lots of things to be upset about. And so there's just sort of this like grace and bubble around everything right now. And it's giving people space to be kind to themselves, to take rest seriously, to sleep more. I saw today someone on Twitter was just saying like, I'm sleeping better than I have slept in years. And it's he was just saying like, this is what happens when you have the space, and whenever we're allowed to go outside again and hang out. What if we continue to offer that grace to one another? One more area that I've been thinking about is then we'll just do some questions and stuff, but whatever your Zoom background wall looks like right now, that seems to be the thing. So one of my friends said, that's like a pretty hard coronavirus flex. But it's like there's not a lot of space or time or reason or purpose behind image management at the moment. I mean, like what's the point? And man, I wonder if that was always true. I wonder if it's possible that we actually spent so much time caring so much about exterior things that we forgot about interior things, or we at least put one above the other. We at least thought way more deeply about what people's perceptions of our exteriors were going to be than we thought about what people's perceptions of our interiors would be. And so what is this season affording us? What opportunities are you and I getting right now as human beings? Of a thing. And everyone is saying right now, this is going to be longer than shorter. And if that's true, if everything is going to be longer, we can take our time with it. We can be gentle with ourselves. But we also, at the same time, we don't have to, we don't want to come out of this time shallower people. I guess that's the thing I've been thinking a lot about. It's like, I'd like to come out of coronavirus quarantine a deeper person. I'd like to come out of this time a more substantial person and not a less substantial person. Most of us are probably going to come out of coronavirus a little bit more physically substantial because of how inactive we all are at the moment. But I'd like to actually be an internally substantial, more substantial person on the other side of this, and to have used the opportunities that were given to us by this very strange and hard and violent reset. There's a whole bunch of pain that is not even mentioned in anything I've said about this so far, because the reality is that we're in this place right now because of pain and suffering going on in the world. And there's going to be real, lived, ongoing, perpetual pain and suffering that follows us as a people for a very long time. And those things are going to have an undoubted impact on us. Actually, nothing has a greater impact on you and me than those things. And yet, for the many ones of us, which I think is many of us who are even watching this right now on YouTube and Instagram, for the many ones of us, there is there's a calm before the storm. There's a space right now in which to realize that the things that are being opened up because of this are opportunities to grow. and to become deeper people. And so, what I want to do in the time that's left is answer some questions. And I have a couple of questions. So you're going to need to go over to Instagram Live, and you can find me at Matthew Brown, and you can be my friend for free, and then you can ask me questions over there. And what the questions are, it doesn't have to be specifically about what I'm talking about, but as much as just like if there are things that are just like that this is stirring up in you, or things that you're curious about that you'd like to explore, or hear a very amateur answer, I'm happy to give it to you. So yeah. Okay, so here's one of the questions I got. So someone said, my business is closed due to the shelter in place order, and asking all non-essential businesses to close. And one part of my heart is great with that, because I want to limit transmission of the virus, but another part of me gets envious when I see people. It's a good question. I have I've talked to a bunch of people who are in really precarious situations, mostly because a lot of times their bosses aren't letting them stay home, and they're actually being in some way forced, because of their job, to put themselves in situations or in environments that could be risky, that could expose them to the virus. And so the line of what the limitations are, is that what responsibility is? I don't know, but I would say, that's not super clear, but I would say, like, the reason that everyone's sheltering in place right now, the reason we're doing that is because of our general concern for one another. Social distancing is a form of social justice, and our intention behind this is so that we can make it possible for as few people as possible to die, and as most people as possible to survive and thrive on the other side of this. And so the economics of this are a hard thing to manage. And I do think that, in a sense, like many years from now, we are going to look back on 2020, and this is going to feel, this thing that right now feels like it's eternity plus eternity, it's going to feel like a blip. It's not going to feel like it's not going to feel nearly as long as it feels for us right now. But yeah, I really think that if you have the freedom and the ability, if it's at all possible, I would say the more that we can stay inside and the more that we can stay away is actually the better for everyone in the long run. And that's actually the bigger ball game right now. Yeah, anything that could possibly have permanent ramifications. So that's my thinking on that. Yeah. Well, another person wrote a question. Someone said it's tricky to find a balance between parenting and schooling, household management, mental health, etc. My work. It's how trying to find balance right now between everything at once. Yeah, that's going to feel really hard, because we've never been here before, and yeah, this feels hard because it is hard. Which again just goes back to what I said a number of minutes ago. I think we have to be willing and able to in this. I don't think that you're like, I know some people are using this as an opportunity to like ramp up like memes and whatever tweets out there about how, like, during, Shakespeare wrote King Lear, I think, during the, a plague outbreak, and what are you doing, basically? And it's like, that's awesome. I'm glad Shakespeare did that. Good for Shakespeare. But if you can be creative, be creative. If you can like implement new systems in your life that are going to make life easier, great. But it's like there is a bit of like, we're just putting one foot in front of the other right now. And I think one of the things that you and I can do for each other in this moment is we can actually be carriers of that grace for one another too. Like I don't know, like everyone that is, at least everyone I work with, everyone on my team, I'm just constantly trying to say, like, you are safe. That we're in this together. It's okay that you're not okay. it's okay, because like we have to be able to provide that. It's the one thing that we can give each other right now. Like we can't we I guess we can postmate each other's food, but other than that, like we can't do anything except provide that space that says like I'm going to come to you in a non-judgmental, non-critical way, and I'm going to listen to you and let you so I would just say, yeah, the balance of doing all these things. The most important thing I do right now is I just try to make it a priority every day to do simple things that are going to ground me. And for me, as a Christian, that's beginning and ending every day with some prayer. And then throughout the day, trying to return to still spaces where I may just be 60 seconds where I just take some deep breaths and remind myself that I'm in my Father's world, and it's not up to me. And that's sometimes the best I can do. And then I just jump back at it, whatever it is. But yeah, find like the balance, I think, is going to come over time. But the thing that we can do now is sort of like make sure that we are finding places of anchor along the day to yeah. All right. Any more questions? Anyone have any thoughts? Anyone want to just talk? Ask about my favorite song lyrics or something? Grief. Someone wrote about grief. Yeah, I think that one of the who is it? A pastor out of New York. What's the meaning of life? I don't know, Fran. I think I'd like to take a stab at that, but grief is going to enlarge your soul. Like what grief does is it enlarges the space of your soul, and that's a really counterintuitive thing because we might think like happiness or joy naturally enlarges our soul, and it can, but nothing. And people who've grieved know this, who've like experienced real grief and loss. Like it can, it can like shrivel us down, but it also can like make us huge into the kind of people that we'd want to become. People that suddenly have like become like large houses with many rooms, that people can live in and be safe in. Going from that to what size shoe do you wear? 13. What is a good and healthy way to press into grief? And that's a natural bridge from the last question about shoes. I would say a natural way to press into grief is to not skip past it. And I a couple weeks ago was going up to my parents to see to get something actually from their house, and they live about an hour from me. And I drove up there with one of my kids, and we got to the house, and this is after everything was already sort of like, be careful, but nothing was locked down yet. And my mom had something waiting outside for me, and it was I went and I got it, and then we stood 10 feet from one another and waved at each other, and then my dad came out and waved. I want to hug my parents, and instead, like, I had to create this space, this barrier between us, and wave, and realize that, like, the thing is, I don't know the future. I don't think anything's going to happen to my parents. If anything happens to my parents, I'm sure I'll get to see them. But it's like we're in this weird place right now where we just don't know. We just don't know. I saw someone post the other day something like, there are people right now in the world who have hugged a loved one for the last time, and they don't know it yet. And of course, that's always true. That's always true. It's just true as to go like, oh no, that's too real, and then just try to jump into something else. And instead, the opportunity for you and me in that environment is, if you're a person who can meditate or just contemplate deeply for a long time on something, just like, or journal about it. Again, you're not trying to be overly fatalistic or doomsday. It's just letting your heart feel it. And we're just so predisposed to not feel it. We just want to keep going. Let's see. Yes, Riley. Any Narnia references for us right now, or Dietrich Bonhoeffer? No. Maybe. Give me a second. I might come back to that. Oh, hey, Travis. What is up? It's good to see you on here. Don't give away the last 2 books. Oh, the Narnia books. I won't give away the Narnia books. But yeah, read them if you haven't read them. They'll help you lean into grief because they're kids' books, so you don't think they are powerful, and then they'll touch these really deep places in you, and you'll start crying. Let me see something real quick. Is this still working? Yeah. Okay. The second Harry Potter book is great for this season. The second one. I can see that. I'm actually reading with Feeling Powerless, particularly help people who are really struggling. Yeah. Well, I think first of all, friend, we have to figure out what we can do. And so there are lots of little things that you and I can do. Like giving blood is a thing that we can do. And the American Red Cross is in dire need of blood right now. So there are lots and lots of organizations that we can give to. Meals on Wheels is looking for drivers. There's just there are a small is taking care of our neighbors. And what I mean by that is just that we are, if you're like on Nextdoor or Facebook or whatever, and like whoever the people who are living around you, are you checking in on them? I saw this thing today where a person had developed a color code system with some of their elderly neighbors, and it was just like as far as feeling powerless, though, I mean, I think we're all feeling powerless. I think that just shows that we're feeling things rightly. This should make us feel powerless. What we can do is the small things for us that to remove ourselves and to take care of the people immediately around us, and that's still a lot. I mean, if you think about it, if everyone did that, that would actually make all the difference in the world. But book recommendations. Another book that I've been reading right now is Brennan Manning's Office Child. And that's just because I feel like I'm being invited back in some ways into that place with God. Another great book by Manning is The Furious Longing of God. It's really beautiful. Let's see what else. Hey, Sindhu. How's the Trinity Eastside staff holding up? Oh, thanks. We're doing okay. We are like everyone in the world right now trying to figure out how to do life. Yeah, but we're doing okay. Thanks for asking, Matt. Tala, any recommendations? Artists, musicians, composers? Man. I feel like I need Micah Dalton to jump in here. Mike, are you on here? You speak to some music we should be listening to right now. This is pretty funny, but I jumped across I've stumbled across a Jewish ensemble, like hipster band group from Pennsylvania. Anyway, it was really beautiful. All the songs were in Hebrew, which I don't really know. But there are songs of lament, and that felt like good music right now. Daniel Defoe's Reflections from the Plague in London. That's really good. Yeah. I also recommend where is it? Just 1 second. I'm pulling something up. Hipster Lament. I know. Of course, right? Oh, if you're into Stephanie Gretzinger, her newest album is really beautiful. I'm a big fan of that. The new Sufjan Stevens New Age album is great for background music, but I'm not sure it's going to really carry you through Corona season. Are you going to send letters to people? Yes. Yeah, actually, a couple of my kids have started pen pals. So it's not just for kids though. Find stamps and send letters. Am I going to do this again? Jenny, I'd like to. So we'll see we'll see whether or not we do this again. Matt Jurek. Don't worry, Matt, I'll give you one in a second. Confession during quarantine. Oh yeah, that's what we can call it. It's like a fireside chat, but instead it's just me talking to myself on a phone screen. Okay, Mike is working on suggestions. All right, we got to hold tight because Micah Dalton, he's going to save the day. Any other thoughts, questions? This is awesome. You guys are great. All right. In confession during quarantine. About doing confession like to another person during quarantine. Hey, Scott. Yeah, I think like we're all kind of learning new ways of relating to people right now. One of the things that feels good about this is more people are making phone calls and fewer people are texting, and that feels good. Although texting's still great, but I would think right now, like probably most of what we're gonna have to do. Yeah, everybody wants to know about the hedge that Micah Dalton stood in front of last week for the Trinity Eastside feed, which great question. Super important and probably on many people's minds. I'm glad you asked it, Riley. That hedge is just very classy. Confessing my sin. Micah is the hedge of protection. That's amazing. Oh, here we go. Big Thief, Philip Glass, Tasha Cobb, Bonnie Holly. Oh, is confession of sin a sacrament? Like Jenny, I'm not sure. I think what you're like, can we be doing the confession of sin during this time? You can do confession around other things. So like right now at our church, we're not taking communion. And that means that none of us are. I'm not, none of us are. And that's because communion is a sacrament where a priest blesses elements and then the church shares them from a common cup and a common loaf. Although, of course, that's somewhat symbolic, but that's still the idea. But I think that we can very fancy looking book is our prayer book, and in it every single day we're invited to confess our sins in the morning and then again in the evening. Now, what it looks like for me, I don't carry this around with me everywhere I go. I have an app on my phone that reminds me first thing in the morning, and then again at night to pray. It also reminds me at 1:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. And it just like it's a little like ding, time to pray. And in the morning and the evening, I confess my sins. And it's the thing that we say every Sunday, most merciful God, we confess that we've sinned against you in thought, word, and deed by what we've done and what we've left undone. We've not loved you with our whole heart. We've not loved our neighbors ourselves. And so I say that every day. And I would just say, if you're looking for people to do that with, if you have a roommate or you have a person you can do it even on the phone with, to just take a minute and read that with one another and spend 60 seconds, 90 seconds in silence, that could be, I think, a really meaningful practice ritual during this season. Yeah. Jenny is recommending For the Time Being by Annie Dillard. Also very good. And Devotional Classics by Richard Foster. Yeah, can't go wrong with Foster. This is great. This is like a funny book recommendation time. I love it. It's awesome. All right. I think we are coming to an end here, which is great. We made it 46 minutes, which that feels like some kind of a victory. Speaking of the BCP, there are lots of versions. Could you speak to which one Trinity uses, recommends? Yes, I can. Trinity actually uses in all of our liturgy the 1979 prayer book, which was we have most of the liturgy is the same. So we use them as our prayer book. However, our denomination, ACNA, Anglican Church North America, came up with a 2019 prayer book, which we sell at our parishes, and you can pick up, and it's really good. And we're probably actually going to move to that prayer book in the next year or so. And so that would, if you're looking to buy one and to acclimate yourself with it, the best way to do it is to get the ACNA 2019 prayer book. We got more music recommendations coming. Some tips on how to grow vine walls. The cool wall. John Mark Pantana, Son of Cloud, Jack Rose, Kamashi Washington. Oh yeah, the Claire de Lune. That is really good. Yeah, also the Avalanches. That's another Gabe Seibel recommendation. The new Phoebe Bridgers is also really beautiful. She's somewhat of a dark companion during this season, though. So if you want the new BCP, email Beth for the link. Beth@atltrinity.org. There you go. Laura, you're here just in time. We're wrapping things up. It's good to have you, though. All right, cool. Hey, friends. It's I can't see any of you, but I hope that it's it's been good to be together. Sleeping at last, definitely. Anyway, you're loved. I hope that we see you soon. I hope I see you in person very soon.